Okay, good morning, everyone, and thank you for logging in and joining us on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon. We hope that you have little smoke in your area, and if you have a great amount of smoke, we hope that you're keeping safe and wearing those face masks out there. Today, you are here joining us, Oshpod, on Tuesday, August 25th, 2020, for Pin 68 support and attachment requirements for fixed, interim, mobile, movable, other and temporary equipment. We're going to go over some housekeeping items real quick uh, to let you know that you are here for a roughly 1 hour presentation with about 20 minutes of question and answer. If you find that you need further discussion or you have questions that you need clarified regarding Pin 68, feel free to email us at webinarroom@oshpod.ca.gov. Again, that's webinar room at oshpd.ca.gov. You will all be muted during the presentation, and if you have any questions or you want to go ahead and follow up, go ahead and send us an email. We will also be able to come in and advise you that if you have specific questions about a specific project, it is advisable that you first contact your OSHPD field staff, whether it's your RCO, whether it's your DSE, CO, or FLSO for those specific questions on those projects. We know that those projects can be a little tricky, and this Pin 68 might need further clarification. So feel free to reach out to the OSHPD team. We are a great resource for you, and feel free to use that as you need to. If we do have presentation difficulties or presentation transmission difficulties, please feel free to log off, log back in using the same registration link that you were sent by the GoTo software. And if we have transmission difficulties, we will go ahead and log off and do the same. Just know that you will all be muted during the presentation. And if you have a question about the Pin 68 presentation, please type that question into the GoTo question box, and we will monitor those questions and answer those questions the best we can at the end of the presentation. So today we have Ali Sumer, supervisor for the Seismic Compliance Unit. He will be doing the presentation. And for the question and answer session, we will also have Mr. Richard Tannehill, supervisor for the Building Standards Unit. And with that being said, Ali, if you're there, I hand the mic over to you.
All right, thank you. Thanks for the introduction too. As Caesar mentioned, we'll try to answer as many questions as possible at the end of the presentation. So Pin 68, it's been in the works for a while, and my involvement started with the early development of this. There are many engineers worked on this pin. So there's a number of people who contributed to this Pin 68 development, including HBSB. They really provided great feedback and direction on this pin. So just a little introduction before actually coming to the details. For those of you who may or may not be familiar with what is pin versus can, so cans, OSHPD cans, those are tied to certain code cycle. So as the code cycles progress, they get rolled into the next code, and then the can gets basically not valid because it's rolled into the code. Pins, on the other hand, they bridge across all the code cycles. So the day that it gets published and effective, it can be used. And to clarify, for example, if you have a 2010 project, let's say it's ongoing, you can use pin, for example, this pin. So The code cycle doesn't matter for pins, so it is immediately effective and can be used. Now, obviously, you got to look at case-by-case basis about how you can use this pin in a certain given situation. That's one of the reasons that Caesar mentioned earlier that you should be in communication with the field staff about how to make use of this pin. So now going back to the introduction, I think all the listeners would agree that there are some inconsistent applications regarding equipment anchorage, and that was the driving force and reason to develop this pin. So during this development, we also made sure that all the requirements and the changes are rolled into the upcoming code. So there's a mid-cycle 2019 mid-cycle code. So we put a lot of pin language into that code. So if you look at the current 2019 code, you won't see these changes, but in the mid-cycle, all the definitions are in. Again, you don't have to wait the mid code cycle to come in, so you can use it today. Does this pin cover all possible cases? The answer is no. As you all know, that especially hospitals, any imaginable cases and conditions, it exists. So this pin attempts to really cover hopefully majority of the cases, and really special cases will be handled case by case basis. As I mentioned, is it okay to use now? The answer is yes, for any code cycle. This was published back in March. This is a almost pre-COVID pin. One of the common questions that we get is, in order to use this pin in a 2010 code, do I need a AMC, alternative method of compliance? The answer is no, because it's already a published pin. You do not need an AMC. However, if you want to use this, if you are changing a detail due to this pin, obviously, as usual, you may need to do an ACD, or this may be handled in an RFI. Sometimes, depending on the case, it can be handled as non-material alteration. Where can you find this pin? You can download it from our website. I also put a link to this, and I think the PDF will be distributed in our website. I'm not sure, but anyways, if you go to our website, you can just download this. So before I go to the next slide, I just want to bring up the pin quickly. Caesar, you can see the PDF, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So this pin is not a short one. It's about 11 page long. So you will see the new definitions, the requirements tied to those definitions, and the explanation of each definition in detail in this pin, as well as, let me go all the way to the end. And there are charts and graphs. So in today's presentation, I will be showing a bunch of these things. So the presentation doesn't presentation covers all these figures. So this presentation does not show anything else. So everything in the presentation is actually in this pin. Also, the example equipment schedule as well as the frequently asked questions that I will explain more in this presentation is also at the last page. So this is the structure of the PIN. Now, just jumping right into the classifications. So this PIN brings in new classifications. While doing that, let me first read like fixed, movable, mobile, countertop, other, temporary, and interim. You are familiar with fixed, movable, and mobile, and temporary. In order to holistically approach the equipment issue, we first revisited the definitions of fixed, movable, and mobile, and we started carving out the definition and scope into countertop, other, interim, and temporary. So I will not touch the past definitions. So this presentation only looks at the PIN. I will not attempt to just explain what the old codes tried to say. It's just we're gonna just move forward. Now, these classifications are the backbone of what we are trying to do in this PIN. So, engineer of record or design professional of record. The idea is to place non-structural equipment to place in each classification, whatever is appropriate. As soon as you put it in the right place, it will save time for everybody. So the way that we recommend putting that in a classification is a table. So obviously we cannot enforce a format, but we require to place the equipment in the appropriate classification. One way of doing that is such as this table. So you have the weight, width, height, depth, and the drawing detail. And here is the classification breakdown. So fixed, movable, mobile, countertop, temporary, interim, other. And I will come to the definition of essential in a minute. So I will re-emphasize this during my presentation. So it is very important to put the schedule in the construction documents so that everybody agrees and there won't be any misunderstanding down the road. As I mentioned, in the new classifications, there are some more terms, such as essential and patient care vicinity. Essential is a new term, so it's basically it's determined by the facility in consultation with the design professional. So let me read the definition. Essential equipment means equipment that failure of which will significantly impair operations during or after a disaster. The facility shall determine which equipment is essential. So this is where it gets really different than any previous code cycles. Essential equipment shall also include equipment that is required to provide the basic services of the hospital as defined in this section. So we added this sentence because as a minimum, the equipment that is under the basic services should be under the essential. And this eliminates the question, if the facility says we have nothing essential, then we're going to be pointing out, well, at least you got to have the basic services of the hospital covered under this essential equipment. And I will come to the point that, what to do with essential equipment when it comes to in picture when not. Another definition is patient care vicinity. So this is not a new term, but this is a new term in the consideration of Anchorage. So California Electrical Code has this definition, so we took it from there. Basically, what it is it defines an area or a volume where we consider additional requirements. So basically 6 feet on the side of patient and 7'6" above the floor. That's the definition. I heard many questions. Okay, what if I have an equipment 8 foot above the patient? We will still consider that as patient care vicinity because gravity wins. All right, the most equipment, the most discussed type classification is really exempt. So we did not change the ASCE 716 exemption items. So I'm gonna just say the same items such as furniture or equipment 20 pounds or less, and distributed system 5 pounds per linear foot or less. So ASCE 716 also says that these are exemption from seismic design. So you may still need positive attachment. And the famous less than 400 pounds, less than 4 feet, this basically gets you out of the seismic design. And the flexible connections are provided. So those are, we haven't changed that for this. So pin 68 takes this exempt equipment language one step further. Okay, if it is exempt, what do we do now? So, what if I show it on the drawing? What if I don't? So we went into that next step. So if an exempt item's seismic bracing is shown on a drawing, engineer design and calculation is not required. So if you identified an equipment as an exempt, but still wanted to show in the drawings, we're not going to ask calculations. So it's already an exempt item. So let's say you showed it on the drawings, but for some reason, any reason, you wanted to do a change the anchorage, change something. So that change will not trigger an ACD. So this is an important note to make. For the exempt equipment, we're going to treat that as non-material alteration. So if it's an exempt equipment, then and the seismic design is not required, well, for example, can you use Velcro? So what we mentioned in the pin 68 is support and attachment of exempt equipment shall be determined by facility and/or design professional of record. So if the design professional comes back and say, I want to use Velcro to do this, that's up to the design professional. All right, more discussion. And this is probably the most important one about exempt equipment. Does exempt equipment mean loose equipment, like without anchorage? So this is where the positive attachment required, not required, that discussion, we basically put it saying that design professional of record shall determine if exempt equipment is to have positive attachment or is to remain unattached. So let's say you identified printer as an exempt equipment. It's a bit on the heavier side. but still it's an exam equipment. And that one, you may just say that no attachment is required, but you need to mention that. Then the next question is, well, there are like thousands of small exam equipment. Do I have to just say every single one of them not to remain attached? Well, we have to be practical in this area as well. Use this pin when there's a disagreement between the field staff and the design professional. We are not asking you to just say every like 5-pound temperature measuring device to be put on the drawings. We are not asking that. This is just to give you a direction on what to do and what is allowed. So there are certain items in exam equipment where design professional of record requires attachment. So they say that yes, this is exempt, but we don't feel comfortable. We need the attachment for this. So in that case, support and attachment type shall be shown on the drawings so that we can inspect that installation and make sure that the contractor installed the way that the engineer wanted to begin with. So when applicable, obviously, the support and attachment installation shall be per manufacturer's specification. So we will also discuss exam equipment in some other within some other classifications, but I will just go through each classification and give some examples. So the first one is fixed equipment. Typically remains in one fixed location. So that's question number one. And connected to utilities. So I will be mentioning utilities quite a lot in this presentation. We excluded and mentioned this in the pin. It excludes equipment with plugs for 110 220 volt receptacles having a flexible cable or cord. Also, coffee machines are a prime example on saying that it is not a fixed equipment because some machines, some like refrigerators, they have a little tubes, plastic tubes just tied into the system. We do not consider that as utilities. So in order to make that a little bit more I guess official, we just mentioned that equipment with pipe tubing less than ½ inches with a shut-off valve, it is not under fixed equipment. So movable. Movable is some people when they see movable, they think mobile. So the definition of movable, we further fine-tuned it. So it's essentially a fixed equipment. So, but it's periodically moved to facilitate cleaning or maintenance. So again, just like fixed equipment, this movable equipment remains in one location. Acceptable to reuse reattachable anchors or restraints because you need to pull it and then put it back. So you need a reattachable anchors. Obviously, you need to have flexible connections because if you are tied to a gas line, you got to be careful. On the support and attachment materials, design professional record can use just the national standards, or you can use ICC reports, IAPMO, like valid evaluation services reports. Now, when it comes to further flexibilities, we added the evaluation of the support and attachment by testing, meaning that if whatever attachment you are using, if you test it 2 times the load, then we will call it good. So this is new. Let's say the support and attachment, you you don't want to test it, or the testing is not practical. You may use manufacturer's load rating in a it's a catalog, but let's say in the catalog you do not have any documentation or background to back that catalog value. So what we're gonna allow is we're gonna let DPR take the catalog value and divide that by 4 and compare it with the project-specific loading. In other words, 4 times of the load that is coming from the project should match the manufacturer's catalog value. One can ask that, oh, the catalog values already have factor of safety. Let's say factor of safety of 3. Let's say the manufacturer had, let's say, 1,000-pound 1,000-pound rating, and then they used, let's say, factor of safety of 4, and in the catalog they put 250 pounds as the rating. So they said that 250 pounds you can use it. For this project, if you are not, if that project doesn't have ICC, IAPMO, or any other, and you're not testing it, you're going to divide 250 by 4 to use it. So that's, I want to make that clear. We're not going back to 1,000. We are starting, our starting point is 250. If you are only using the catalog as the capacity. So another frequently asked question is, okay, we've shake table tested it. You know, do we have to? And we are using the same support and attachment. Do we have to do anything? The answer is no. You already shake table tested it. You can use it as is, as long as it's the same installation. So again, what's in common between fixed and movable? Both have utilities such as gas line piping. So if you have like a lab equipment that is not, that doesn't have any water or gas or anything, that is not a movable equipment. That's something else. Movable equipment has utilities in it, just like fixed. So I want to make sure that there's a distinction. Both remain in the same place. An example would be a gas stove, pulled for cleaning, for movable. And as I mentioned, lab equipment with 110-volt plug, periodically pulled for cleaning, is not a movable classification. So we're going to come to what classification would be appropriate later. What about the mobile X-ray machine that is moved around? That is not movable, it's mobile. So there is a difference. As I mentioned earlier, in the pin, so this chart is in the pin. A lot of people find this chart very helpful, and let me walk you through that. Y-axis is center of mass. So, and I want to emphasize, this is not height, this is center of mass. So if something is 8 feet tall, and if the center of mass is in the middle, you're talking about that. So this is the center of mass on Y, and the weight in the X-axis. So there are symbols that we put in. If you see a bolt, that means that support and attachment detail drawings are required. And if you see this document, design calculations are required. So if you see both of them are required. So let's start with 20 pounds. As you know, 20 pounds, under 20 pounds is exempt, so it's empty. Over 20 pounds, you see two different areas. One is under 4 feet and over 4 feet. Under 4 feet, you still need to provide support and attachment, but you do not have to provide calculations to Ashpot. Over 4 feet, both of them are required. So you need to anchor it as well as give us the calculation. If you go over 400 pounds, regardless of height, weight, it's support and attachment details are required, and the design calculations. So this area is same. This area is only Anchorage, and this is valid for fixed and movable. Coming to mobile, the definition is typically used in a different location than where it is stored and moved from one location in the building to another during ordinary use. So if you have a piece of equipment and if you put rollers under that, that doesn't make it mobile. So the idea is it used in different locations? One question that I get a lot is, okay, how can we determine mobility? There was an 8-hour rule in the past. There is none with this pin. So the 8-hour rule is no longer there. It's not going to be enforced because it's not part of the requirement. So if for some reason this comes up in the field, is there an 8-hour rule? The answer is there is no 8-hour rule. So coming to mobile, using the same chart, center of mass again on this, weight on that. Under 400 pounds, regardless of the center of mass, there is no requirement. Under 4 feet, there is no requirement. If you are over 400 pounds and the center of mass is more than 4 feet, then a condition needs to be looked at. The support and attachment and calculations are required if the mobile equipment is not stored in equipment storage room. Let me reword this. So if you have a really tall and heavy mobile equipment, and if you are storing that in an equipment storage room, a designated space, then you still don't need to attach anything. So you just bring that into the storage room, close the door, then you do not have to tie or anything. If that tall and heavy mobile equipment is near or store, or when it's not used, stored in a patient care vicinity or anywhere along that place, then you need to provide support and attachment and seismic design calculations. I want to also note that we looked at a lot of mobile equipment. It is extremely rare to have something that is more than 400 pounds and center of mass more than 4 feet. One of the reasons is when the staff, hospital staff, is pushing the equipment, if the center of mass is too high, it topples. So that's one of the reasons that a lot of mobile equipment has low center of mass. It may be tall, but it has a low center of mass because they don't want it to topple over. So this condition may not even come into picture, but like I said, all kinds of cases can be present, but it is unlikely. Now, what you're gonna hear the most about the equipment classification is other. We tried to come up with another name for other, but truly this we couldn't find anything better than saying other. So first of all, the equipment that is not included under fixed, mobile, movable, countertop, or exempt items. And I will come to countertop later, but let's start with other. Typically used at a single location, so that's key. If it is not used in a single location, then you have to put it under mobile. It is not attached to utilities, meaning that no gas line or water line and things like that. The plugs are okay. So for example, a lab equipment, which has a 110 volt plug, remains in one location. This is not a fixed equipment, it is other equipment. So other equipment has the flexibilities that I mentioned in the movable. So like 2 times of testing, a fourth, I started hearing echo. Caesar, can you take a look?
Yes, let me take a look at that. But go ahead. While I look into that, go ahead.
Okay. So it's acceptable to reuse reattachable anchors and restraints. So a quarter and things like that, it's same as movable. Yep. And I also want to mention that those flexibilities are not they are not applicable to fixed equipment. So movable other has those flexibilities, 2 times testing and so on and so forth. Fixed equipment does not. So I want to emphasize that. So coming back to other, anchor if essential to hospital operations and weight of equipment is greater than 100 pounds. So let me move forward with this one, and I will show all these requirements in a chart. So at first, again, it may look pretty crowded, but once you know the center of mass and weight of equipment, you just come to that point and read the requirement. So this should give a clear direction on where what the requirements are, and depending on what the sizes and weights are. So let's start with the weight. Under 20 pounds, under other equipment is exempt. When you are over 20 pounds, and if you are under 4 feet, the anchorage requirement comes in if item 2 is there. So let me repeat that. If you have a, let's say, 50-pound equipment with center of mass 3 feet, you come here and you say that, okay, first I need to look at item 2. So the anchorage is required if the equipment could fall within the patient care vicinity, the one that I mentioned early in the presentation, 6 feet to the side. So if you are near that patient care vicinity, you need to anchor it. Also, you need to anchor it if the equipment could fall and block a required means of egress. So you need to make sure that you are not in that means of egress area. So you need to talk to architects and make sure that you are not there. If you are there, you need to anchor it, but you do not need to provide calculations because that symbol is not there. Now, if you are over 4 feet, you still need to look at it. And if you are under around patient care vicinity and means of egress, the only difference is you need to provide calculations. One can ask that, wait, I have a 50-pound equipment, but the center of mass is more than 4 feet. Does that mean that if it is not in patient care vicinity and not in means of egress, it's exempt? The answer is yes, it would be exempt. Now, the engineer of record may still choose to provide anchorage. That's up to the design professional of record. So, over 4 feet with this pin does not automatically require anchorage. So I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Now, what is this 100-pound? The 100-pound trigger brings the essential equipment consideration. So, if let's talk about 150-pound unit. So it's between 100 and 200. Under 4 feet, you need to look at two things now. One, is it essential? Which is item number 1. 2, patient care vicinity and means of egress consideration. So, if it is not essential, but still patient care vicinity, you need to anchor it. If it is essential, but not patient care vicinity, you still need to anchor it. So, but still no calculations are required. Similarly, over 4 feet, same way. Again, if you have a 150-pound equipment with 5 feet center of mass, and it's not essential, not patient care vicinity, not means of egress, it's up to the design professional record to provide anchorage or not. Okay, over 200, this pin brought this, again, a new limit. 200, if you are 200 and over 4 feet, regardless of what it is, you need to provide support and attachment, and calculations are required. So this area is all required. Under 4 feet, under 400 pounds, you are still subjected to the same item 1 and 2. So, as a summary, this area has no calculation, and it may be exempt from anchorage. This area requires further look. So hopefully this clarifies the other equipment requirement. Countertop. Countertop are by far my favorite classification, because pretty much everything happens on countertop equipment. So we just provided a definition. Typically remains on countertop, workbench, shelf, or support other than the floor during its service life. So being on a countertop does not get you out of the requirements for other ones. For example, fixed mobile, or other equipment. Meaning that, let's say this piece of equipment has a gas line into the wall, then you are subjected to the same requirements of fixed. Again, you do not want any issues with the utilities. Countertop equipment has similar flexibilities in terms of reattachable anchors or restraints. And one of the most frequently asked questions is, if the countertop equipment is located on furniture, such as this, does the furniture require anchorage? So the answer is yes. If you are anchoring the equipment down, then the furniture also needs to be anchored. Now, what I want to further explain this is we OSHPD will not look at the analysis of the furniture, meaning that we're not going to be looking at all the little glues and pins and other things in the furniture. We will look at whether it is anchored down or not, because looking at the furniture we're not going there. However, if you put a super heavy piece of equipment on a very, very flimsy furniture, then we may start asking some questions. But all other cases, all the common cases, we will not be analyzing the furniture. Still, you need to provide the anchor here and anchor down here. Countertop is exactly the graph is exactly the same as the other equipment. The only difference between what I showed in other and countertop is this item number 3 on these notes. Item number 3 is the anchorage is required if attached to utilities. So and all other patient care vicinity, means of egress, essential, those all are the same. Temporary equipment. This classification is not new. There was a CAN before. So with this PIN and as well as the upcoming mid-code cycle, we rolled that into the code. Again, there's no change in the definition. More than 30 days, less than 180 days is temporary. Just the CAN allowed in the past. Seismic 50% reduction is allowed. What's different is we added wind speed reduction in the forces in this pin. So ASC 3714, basically what it is depending on the duration of your equipment, it allows some reduction. So the longer the duration gets, the reduction gets less. Another difference between what was allowed in the past versus this pin is we are accepting to use ballasts, counterweights, things like that for overturning for temporary equipment. So a lot of times there's really not a good place to provide anchorage down. You do not want to put foundation and all that for a tiny temporary equipment. So we're gonna accept the ballasts for overturning. What about the supports and attachment coming into those temporary equipment? The seismic design is not required, and this is not new. This was in the CAN, so we did not change that. So you still need to provide the gravity support and all that, but the seismic design is not required. Interim equipment. So this is again a new definition. So this is really for the equipment that is used during construction. So a lot of construction, it lasts more than 180 days. So sometimes years. But the contractor needs that equipment for whatever reason. A lot of times what happens is since it's more than 180 days, it's not under temporary, it quote unquote becomes permanent. So we do not want that situation. So that's one of the reasons that we introduced interim equipment. So it's only allowed only for the duration of the construction project that's related to. So those quote unquote long-term equipment that will become not compliant right after the project is finished. So you need to do something with those those equipment. We did not allow seismic reduction because this is a bit more long-term. However, we allowed wind speed reduction. So, those are the parameters for interim equipment. Similar to temporary, the supports and attachments, we are not requiring seismic design. One other, and I think this is my last slide. One other frequent asked question is shelving. So, for example, there are a lot of shelving that is not heavily loaded, not like paper media, and when you add things up with the with certain minimum PSF that is in the code, it really becomes not workable. Meaning that I'm only putting hardly 1 pound per square foot, but the rating of the shelf is 3,000 pounds. Now I have to provide a huge anchors just to carry total 10 pounds. So that doesn't make sense. So we thought about, okay, how we can approach this one. So we basically said when anchorage is required, it's acceptable to use a maximum load based on the type of storage for the shelving. The maximum load should not exceed the manufacturer's rated capacity. So what this means is there are certain areas, let's say pharmacy, and certain shelves, the design professional of record can say that in this type of use for these shelves, according to their expertise, they say that okay, 5 PSF is the load for this use area, and you show calculations according to that, and we will accept that. What we won't accept is we're not going to accept a typical detail like a shelf and says 5 PSF, we don't know where they're going to use it. So that's not what we are talking about. We are talking about a designated place with a designated use in an area that a plan reviewer can look at it and match the use versus what the design professional is saying. So again, please do not just assign a typical detail where you don't know what's gonna be put on it, where it's gonna be used. These are specific areas and specific use. A follow-up question on this one is, well, if the design professional of record says 5 PSF, how would the user know that it is 5 PSF? Like, can they just, put heavy stuff? So how would we know? That's why a designated area that a designated use is important, because if it is a pharmacy that the medications will go, then they're not going to be putting heavy piece of equipment in those shelves. So the design professional knows what the use is, the plan reviewer knows what the use is. So that's what I'm trying to get at. So this will give some relief in some areas, but and many other cases, you may have to again go with the manufacturer's load rating or whatever the code minimum is. With that, we're gonna open to questions.
Great. Thank you, Ali, for that great presentation. And we hope that all of you are taking something away from this presentation. If anything, it stirs up your inquisitive minds to ask questions if any of it is unclear. I do want to point out that the email address on here for questions has been updated to send your questions to webinarroom@oshpod.ca.gov. So with that being said, and before we get into the questions, we want to go ahead and remind you that if you have any questions, go ahead, type it into the go-to dashboard or the go-to question box on your dashboard there. Or if you don't want to ask a question now, or if later on you have a question that you thought of, geez, I should have asked while I had them on the phone or on the webinar, send us an email and we will be glad to go ahead and take a look at that and have that discussion with you and provide you an answer. I'll go to question number one that we have, and Ali, I believe this question is for you. The question reads, can you clarify to correct application of 1617 and pin 68 to system furniture panels that are energized by a 120 volt electrical whip? Would it be exempt from seismic design, but must be anchored? Is a DPOR charged with determining location and type of anchorage? This is a common question that we address.
So the furniture generally creates a lot of different interpretation. So first of all, furniture is exempt, and that part is straightforward. However, when the furniture is an energized furniture, let's say like stand-up tables and things like that, where there's an electrical cord, then it starts getting into a gray area. Like, is this furniture? Is this other equipment? But it's used as furniture. So a lot of times, what it looks like furniture, our field staff will consider that as furniture, even though it is electrically connected. But there's always an exception. Some of the furniture gets really big and really hard attached. So and any movement will start severing those hard attached electrical ties. So I asked this question to several design professionals of record, saying that, do you consider this as furniture and not attach it? Some said yes, some said no. So if the connection of the electrical gets really questionable, then have a discussion with our field staff. But to answer your question, just having an electrical cord does not make it other equipment or mobile. So you will most likely stay in the furniture classification or exemption. Okay.
Thank you. I have another question for you. The question is it acceptable to specify anchor per manufacturer's recommendations for equipment 400-pound units sitting on the floor with center of gravity less than 4 feet rather than showing the anchorage on the drawings?
So if it is exempt and you want to you want it to be anchored and inspected, then you need to provide direction to our fields to the contractor. So we need some documentation about how it is getting anchored. If you choose to use the manufacturer's anchorage, then you need to put it in writing, saying that this is how you want it. If you don't want any attachment, then you got to let everybody know.
Thanks, Ali. And Richard, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to follow up on that. I think the question's asking if the equipment is not exempt, can they refer to the manufacturer's instructions instead of adding it to the drawings?
So this question would be more applicable towards the heavier side of the equipment. So a lot of times 20, 25 pound, 30 pound the contractor goes with the manufacturer recommendations, and generally no questions asked. When it comes to the heavier side, then you may want to start showing on the drawings. So there's no straight yes and no answer to that.
Great, Ali. Thank you. And Richard, thank you for clarifying that. And I do want to point something out that has been mentioned throughout the presentation and even in the question and answer portion so far, is that if you have specific questions, use the Oshpot field staff as a resource. They're a valuable resource. They have they'll have the answer, and if they don't have the answer for you, they can surely get the answer for you for a specific situation. We do have another question, Ali, and this question is more or less a request for clarification. Could you please define the 8-hour rule? I have heard conflicting or confusing definitions.
Okay, so let me clarify that. First of all, the time. First of all, let's talk about what 8-hour rule that we are talking about. The 8-hour rule was in the code saying that if an equipment stays in one location more than 8 hours, then you need to look into anchoring it in its 8-hour remaining location. So that 8-hour rule got deleted from the code, and also there is no 8-hour rule in the pin. So the timing justification is not there. So timing will not be part of the enforcement question. So the design professional of record needs to say that this is mobile, this is used in several different places, so that's why it's mobile. And to answer that even further, the difference between movable and mobile. The movable, it remains in the same location, only you take it out during cleaning and put it right back in. Mobile, it's just used in different places. So we are not attaching any timing to that.
Thank you, Ali. We have a question from the participants that has to do with attached to utilities. Ali, the question is, does attached to utilities mean plugged into a 110 outlet?
As I mentioned, we in the code actually now it says that is not considered as fixed equipment. Yes, it is a utility, but we are not considered under a under fixed or movable. So I want to emphasize the distinction. So we are not redefining what utility is. We are defining what falls under fixed and movable, and what is considered connected to utilities under those two classifications. So if it is just a plug-in, it's not under fixed or movable classification.
Thank you, Ali. We have a question, and feel free to defer to the field staff, as this may be a site-specific question, but I'll ask it and let you make that determination. The question is, if an anchor has an ICC report, but with unknown embedded length or installed without inspection, is it acceptable to test the anchor for twice its demand? And if it passes, is it acceptable?
Okay, so this is an existing condition, right? So the existing evaluation is really case by case basis. We are not trying to redefine the existing anchors or things like that. So if you don't know the embedment length, if you don't know a lot of different things, you gotta talk to the field staff. What we are saying in this pin is new construction. So this is this doesn't really go into the existing conditions, how to evaluate existing conditions. So that is outside of the scope.
And I'll use that as a bit of a segue. Just for those of you still on this webinar, feel free to stick around towards the end of this presentation. We'll have we want to share that we have an upcoming remodel CAN presentation, and we'll share more of that information for existing conditions. So with that, Ali, we have a question regarding utilities. The question
Yep.
is, can you find utilities when looking at a countertop equipment? Does an electrical plug-in qualify as utilities?
So I think I answered this question before. So again, if you're on a countertop, if you have a plug-in, let's say a lab equipment sitting on a countertop, it has only a 110 volt plug-in. So you will look at the chart. So let me actually go there. This is countertop. So you're going to look at this chart and define what your center of mass and weight is, and look at these items. Again, item 3 does not consider plug-in as connected to utilities. Okay, so the fixed and movable requirement will be not there. So if you have, let's say, let's give it 2 feet tall, a lab equipment with plug-in, and it is 150 pounds. And let's say your countertop, just to have a round number, let's say the top of the countertop is, let's say, 4 feet. Okay, and you have 2 feet tall plug-in 150 pound equipment. So you are, and the center of mass of that 2 feet tall equipment is, let's say, 1 feet. So 4 plus 1 is 5. So you are here. Now let's look at number 1. Is it essential? So you need to ask that question. Is that piece of lab equipment essential to the facility? Can it fall under patient care vicinity, means of egress? And 3 doesn't apply because it's just a plug-in. If the answer is no to all of these, then it's up to you whether you want to anchor it or not, because it's exempt. Hopefully that answers the question. Probably this question will be asked whether you count or you measure the center of gravity from the floor or from the top of the countertop. The answer is it is measured from the floor to the center of the equipment. So 4 plus 1 is 5. So we also put that in the code. Well, actually, it's already in the code. So there's no change there.
Great, thank you, Ali. Richard, if you're there, I got a question that maybe you can help out with. The question is, sometimes OSHPD projects for the same facility are divided for ease of approval or construction. Can you carry interim equipment from one OSHPD project to another if needed for the same construction area?
That's more of a construction question and not an equipment anchorage. If it's construction equipment, absolutely. If you're talking about putting something in temporarily, when we talk interim, you're talking about something that's going to be there for construction purposes or temporary, but longer than 6 months. So that would be part of both projects, but you can move the equipment. I believe that answers that question, if I'm understanding it correctly. Ali, you can add to that if you need to.
Yeah. So interim equipment is tied to the project, as Richard mentioned.
So that's very specific. So that equipment is tied to that specific project. Thank you for that. Ali, question for you. Clarification. Rooftop fixed equipment, who decides the anchorage or equipment with OSP, SEOR, or manufacturer?
Okay, so these are not conflicting requirements. So if OSP is required, OSP is required. So it's and OSP comes with the shake table testing. You can use those, support and attachment. So there's no change. Rooftop equipment is most likely a fixed equipment because that is the utility. There are a lot of utility lines come in and out. So I'm not quite understanding the question. So
Yeah, no, thank you. That was more of a clarification that they were looking for, fixed equipment and who decides. Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, I can, on this, as Ali said, the OSP is determined by the type of equipment. So you're not making that determination by the SEOR or the manufacturer. It is in the code and what's required. Now, the type of anchorage required would be specified if there was an OSP. And if not, if it wasn't considered a utility and somehow mounted on the roof, it can be done by the manufacturer's recommendation. But again, you're looking at weight and all kinds of other factors when you're considering that.
yeah.
Great, thank you both. Before we go on to the next question, I do want to point out that we have over 15 minutes left in this question and answer session, and we're getting down to the last of the questions that were typed into the go-to panel, that dashboard. So if you'd like, go ahead and type in those questions so we can go ahead and answer them for you. If we do get through all of the questions and provide those answers, we will go ahead and end the webinar a little early, but that's quite all right. So want to throw that out there as a reminder. If you have questions, please type those in. Ali, I got a question for you. Question regarding wall attached equipment. The question
Yeah.
is about wall attached equipment such as computers or monitors, which weigh more than 20 pounds but less than 400 pounds.
So wall attached, obviously you need to provide support and attachment, right? So we're not really how to say. I don't think they're not going to provide support and attachment. So hopefully they are anchoring it. So I don't know what else to say. So the seismic design should be there. So that's I'm going to leave it there.
Right, this pin is more directed at floor mount or counter mount type equipment.
Yeah.
Wall.
Or yeah, and overhead obviously you that's utilities, so you need to provide seismic design. There's only an exception, 20 pounds as well as 5 PLF. So those are the only time that you will be out of it.
Great, thank you. We got another question for you. The question is owner furnished equipment. So the question is, what about certain owner furnished equipment typically installed during move-in, specifically the classification of furniture versus other? As an example, a wood therapy stair with weighing 500 pounds and center of gravity less than 4 feet installed in a therapy gym, can that be considered furniture, or would it be other as needed to be calculated and anchored?
Okay, so this is super specific. I would I advise you to talk to the field staff about the specifics of this type of equipment, whether it can be considered in furniture or not.
Perfect. Going back to the wall, to the wall attachment. To clarify, the wall and attachment question is a calculation required if it's less than 4 feet from the floor and attached to the wall.
To clarify, okay, could you repeat the question?
Of course. The question is, to clarify, the wall and attachment question is a calculation required if it is less than 4 feet from the floor and attached to the wall.
So I would say yes, but again, if you are attaching a 399-pound unit attached to the wall, you will be required to show some calculations. Now, a lot of times when you have a piece of equipment on the wall, you have 4 screws. 95% of the time, you will be fine. It's the very light ones, the 4 anchors on each corner. It's really okay by inspection. So if someone is asking to see a calculation for a 25-pound on a wall with 4 screws, that's not right.
Gotcha. And for that individual who was looking for clarification, if that didn't answer your question, feel free to email us at that email that we provided earlier, and we'll provide it one more time prior to closing the webinar. We do have a question that maybe Richard or Ali, you can answer. The question is, as an owner's rep, do I or the DPOR determine what equipment is essential to hospital operation? It is not defined in the PIN. He says, I'm sorry, I joined a little bit late. Ali, if you could help.
Yeah, so could you read the question again?
Of course. The question is, as an owner's rep, do I or the DPOR determine what equipment is essential to hospital operation?
Yeah.
If it's not defined in the PIN.
So it is actually defined in the PIN. So I'm getting a feedback, an echo actually. So it is determined by the facility, and the design professional of record. It has to be communicated clearly between the facility and the design team. And there is a minimum. So let me go back to, since you joined late, I think that you may have missed the first definition. And this is very important. So it's defined here. There are minimum places where it's about basic services, so those will be rolled into essential. Again, keep in mind that essential does not come into picture for fixed, movable, mobile. So those are not consideration. Those are not considered. The only time it comes into picture is on countertop, other. So all others, you won't have to deal with the essential, whether it's essential or not. And quite frankly, the essential discussion comes into picture when really there's a discussion whether something needs to be anchored or not. But it is very important for the design team to have a clear discussion with the facility. Hopefully that answered that question. Caesar, you want to go to the next question?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ali. For the next question is, for the now allowed testing of anchors of movable equipment to the 2 times the load in absence of the ESR, is that 2 times the load testing requirement twice the demand on the anchor or twice the allowable capacity per manufacturer's literature?
So let me say it maybe a little bit differently. So the manufacturer, let's say, and I'm assuming that the individual is talking about the catalog value, or was it the testing? Which one? Caesar, can you ask that question again?
For the now allowed testing of anchors of movable equipment to 2 times the load in absence of ESR. Is that 2 times the load testing requirement twice the demand on the anchor, or twice the allowable capacity per manufacturer's literature?
Okay. So twice the demand of the equipment load, meaning that once you calculate the earthquake load, let's say you have a rectangular piece of equipment. The engineer calculated the force coming into the support and attachment. Let's say 1,000 pounds is coming to that. Now you need to test twice of that value, 2,000 pounds, and make sure that it holds. So it's the load of the project-specific load to the support and attachment.
Great, thanks, Ali. Richard, is there something you'd like to add to this conversation?
Yeah, there's been a lot of
I think I lost Richard.
So there's been a lot of questions continuing to come in about the connection of utilities. What is considered attached? And basically what you're looking at is if you have a plug-in 110, it's not considered attached. If you have anything hardwired, hard connected with the pipe, that would be considered. Now, Ali, the question is, if it's less than a ½ inch, is it still and it's a water pipe, say, is it still considered permanently attached?
Less than a ½ inch and with a shut-off valve, that will not be considered attached to utilities, and that won't trigger fixed equipment classification.
Less than ½ inch with a shut-off valve, or it's direct plug-in.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Thank you both for that clarification. We have another question regarding center of mass on equipment. The question reads, if the center of mass is not provided by the manufacturer, is half the height generally accepted as opposed to 2/3 the height? Ali, is that something that you can help with?
So that half, 2/3, full, this pin won't resolve that discussion. So talk to your plan reviewer.
Perfect. Thanks, Ali, for that. So again, talk to your plan reviewer. If you have an existing condition, talk to your field staff, and that they might offer a clarification on that as well for that specific requirement or a specific situation. The next question is, if the hospital requires an equipment to be attached to central power, is the equipment then considered essential, quote unquote, per pin 68?
So if it is under the basic services listed in the code, then it will be. Now the essential equipment, the facility will tell the design professional that, hey, this won't be part of the essential functioning after a disaster or during a disaster. So there will be a lot of case-by-case evaluation of what the equipment, what the function of the equipment is. Sometimes it's multi-purpose, sometimes it's not. So that's why a clear communication is very very needed at the beginning of the project.
Great, thanks, Ali. We have a question for you, Ali, and it's just a simple clarification. The question is, would small equipment on carts or booms need to be anchored?
So, anchor of what?
The question is, would small equipment on carts or booms need to be anchored?
Okay, so I tried to touch on this one in the beginning, saying that we look at the equipment not whether it's on rollers or carts or not. So putting something on a cart does not make it mobile. Putting something on a cart does not make it movable. So the question is the same. Does this equipment remain in one place? If the answer is yes, then is it attached to utilities? The answer is yes, then you need to anchor it. Okay, it's not attached to utilities. Then you start going into, is this essential? Is this part of, are you putting this in along the means of egress? Is this near the patient care vicinity? So the roller or cart does not really make a difference. The questions are still the same.
Thank you, Ali. And this will be the last question. We're almost out of time that we have. So the last question, Ali, for you is an equipment considered other equipment and requires tethering or anchorage because it is mobile in the sense that it is moved while in use, but when not in use, it is stationary with the same room that it is being used. Example is an anesthesia Pyxis cart.
Okay, let me quickly go to there. If the design professional says that it's that equipment is used in different places, it's a mobile equipment, then if you are here, you do not need to provide restraints. So if that equipment, which I know what you're talking about, it's not over 4 feet, over 400 pounds, you are most likely something there. It's not required. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
I just want to say to clarify that, did they say anesthesia Pyxis cart?
Correct.
If it is mobile, if it is truly mobile, then
Correct.
it's not required.
That's where I was going. You're looking at truly mobile. This,
Yeah.
I mean, Pyxis machine.
If it remains in one place, then it's not mobile.
Correct. I agree with you. Typically, you don't see Pyxis machines moving from room to room to room.
Yeah. The question was it was being moved.
Right. And that's where you get back to truly mobile.
Yeah.
Sally.
Great, thanks you too. And thank you everybody for participating in this webinar. We do want to point out that if you have a question about this presentation or the PIN 68, go ahead and send us an email at webinarroom@oshpod.ca.gov. If you happen to have a question about a specific project or a specific situation, go ahead and reach out to your field staff, your OSHPOD field staff, whether it's your RCO, your CO, your DSE, or FLSO, about that specific situation. We do want to point out to you before we run out of time here that on Tuesday, September 2nd, at 10 o'clock, between 10 and 11:30, we will be having a remodel can presentation, and we're going to go over what is a remodel, some definitions, applying the remodel can to your projects, and using the remodel flow charts. To remind you that all of our webinars are on our OSHPOD page under the webinar section, and you can go ahead and open up that flyer there and register. Upon registration, you'll receive a confirmation email with the login instructions for that go-to software. It is recommended that if you have multiple staff members in one office, you should register individually to receive separate logins. Upon the completion of that webinar, you'll receive a certificate of completion, which will be emailed from the GoToWebinar to those registered attendees who logged in at the day of the webinar. The certificates will not be available from OSHPOD, and those who do participate will receive an AIA credit of 1.5 for attending that presentation. If you know, and as you've witnessed, the GoToWebinar is something that we've been using, and that's the same platform that we're going to use to present that presentation. Again, that's Remodel Can, Tuesday, September 22nd, from 10 to 11:30. We want to thank you for taking time out of your busy day to join us on this presentation. We hope that you've gained some informational, some good knowledge. And if you still have questions about the PIN, go ahead and email us at webinarroom@oshpod.ca.gov. And if you have questions about a specific project or a specific condition or situation, feel free to reach out to the field staff. Again, we want to thank you, and until next time, we'll see you around.